Hi, everyone. It's Rev Kimmy. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I'm Dr. G, and today we're going to talk about the missing persons case in Kansas and Oklahoma of Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley. And it sadly turned into a homicide, a double homicide. And they have found the bodies. They've made arrests of 4 individuals. And for all the details in the case, folks, you should go check it out online. But they have made an arrest. Hopefully they'll get a conviction in this very quickly, and this will be over with. But for now, for our interest, what we're after here is, Rev Kimmy, can you please share with us what words of knowledge did God share with you prior to the arrest and the bodies being discovered?
Well, of course, I saw this in the news, on my news feed, and I wasn't seeing anything on this case. Otherwise, I would have jumped in sooner. And then after arrests were made, I read it in the news, my news feed, and that was on Saturday, April 13th, 2024, when the arrests were made. Now, when I'm looking at this information online, I instantly saw, through my prophetic gift as a Christian ordained reverend, my hospital ministry. I did hospital ministry 20 years. I do evangelism, street evangelism. I've done teaching in the church, in classrooms and stuff. And so all these years using gifts in ministry, they so happen to work successfully on missing person cases. So I've been used since 1997 on cases, for those who don't know about that. So, like I said, as I'm looking at the arrest records here on the news that they made arrests, I instantly saw with my gifts where they're buried, that they were buried in the dirt, dug graves. Okay, so I reported that to instantly via email, which I'll share on my pinned docuseries found on my Facebook. You can find a screenshot email I'm going to post in the comments to that docuseries. And my Facebook is found as Kimmy, K-Y-M-M-I, Bloomberg, B-L-O-O-M-B-E-R-G. I'm going to be blocking out email addresses. I cannot disclose my law enforcement reference. He is a commander of a detectives division at a major Los Angeles law enforcement agency. So, of course, he does not want attention. This is confidential for law enforcement information only. So I always redact his information on my evidence I put out there on the emails on my Facebook pinned docuseries, okay, to prove that the evidence that I did declare this. You can see the date and time, etc. So I wrote this email to law enforcement on Saturday, April the 13th, 2024 at 8:22 p.m. And I said, and also God had showed me that the mother-in-law was behind it. I did see that. But I didn't share it because it wasn't enough details to do that days prior to getting the knowledge, the word of knowledge as to where they're buried. So I said, I see that the women were buried in the dirt in graves, and they were dug graves. So as time passed, they did find the bodies, as we all know, and they were found in dug graves. The evidence I want to present to support that this was 100% right, it's from an article from AP News. It says, on March 29th, Cullum used heavy equipment to dig a hole in a pasture he rented not far from the meetup site, that affidavit said. So this is court records that support what I put in writing the day before on April 13, 2024. And they found the bodies on Sunday, April 14th, 2024. And so that's evidence that what I declared, what God showed me, was accurate information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not a psychic. I'm not a medium. This is from the Holy Spirit as a Christian reverend, ordained minister.
And the words of knowledge that you got then, the key points is that you had correctly identified that the grandmother, the mother-in-law,
Yeah.
was behind it all, and that men were involved in the burial and the murder. Not a man, but men, and that it was a dug hole, and having been at Fort Hood forever, it seemed like, and down in that area, I know it's just really, really hard to dig with a shovel. You got to use a pickaxe. And you found that they used heavy equipment?
Yeah. As you know, we've worked on many cases helping law enforcement on missing person cases that turn out to be homicides. And they don't always turn out that way, of course. But this particular one that I worked on for a couple of years, looking for a body buried, we would go around and test the dirt, right? We would put our shovels and see if we could, poke at the dirt. How soft is it? Is this hard? Is this something we can do to dig a hole, to bury a body? You got to put your mindset as the criminal, right? To kind of dissect and figure out where the body is. Besides the gifts that I have, but you also have to put it into motion. You got to go out and try to find it. And so this case has changed everything of the way that I'm going to be working cases when I'm looking for bodies in the future. Because of the fact that I will never poke at the ground to see whether or not if it's diggable, if it's soft enough to dig a hole and bury someone. Because if it's too hard, I'll walk away. I'll say, this is too hard. You can't bury a body here. But now I will never, ever, ever test the ground. I will rely upon my gifts only. Because of the fact that Cullum, as I just read, he used heavy equipment to dig holes to bury the women, okay, at a nearby site, nearby the location where the ladies were abducted, okay? And so
and in that
we would, if we worked the case, we're in a different state. I'm 700 miles away, okay? And God showed me that, okay? I never went to Oklahoma to the site where the women went missing. I worked it from my house in 700 miles away in prayer and worship. Well, actually, I didn't do praise and worship like I usually do. I only saw that they were arrested, and God just revealed to me their graves. I saw it. And so I'm never, ever, ever going to, if we went there and tested the ground, we'd see it's hard. We'd rule it off. Like, they're not buried here.
Yeah, too hard
right?
to dig. Yeah.
Right. But he outsmarted us. He would have. We would have blown off that location. But never again will I test the dirt. It's irrelevant now. I have learned it's irrelevant. Yeah. I need to use my gifts to ask the Lord where they're buried.
Okay. Now that makes me think of something else too, and they were buried out in the middle of nowhere. If you go to Google Earth and go down to street level and stand there at the intersection where they met and look around, it's like flat in the middle of nowhere. And I like the nearest farmhouse is over a half mile away. You can't even see it. Based on your experience, what can you tell us about domestic cases like this and custody cases? And
Well, number one, okay, so if you guys are just listening to this for the first time, I'm a litigation and trial paralegal in civil law. And usually I have been employed at the top law firms of our country with the known attorneys, such as Robert Shapiro, who handled the O.J. Simpson case, or Ken Starr, who handled Monica Lewinsky. Okay, so these are top attorneys, top law firms, worldwide law firms, huge. So I'm very experienced, over 30 years. And when I do work family law, I work many areas of law. Every area of law I can work and have experience in, except for I stay away from criminal law, and I stay away from workers' comp on purpose, intentionally, those two. So at times I work family law divorce cases, and we write up the custody schedule so that their meeting place, believe it or not, whether there's problems or not, you don't wait, guys. If you have a divorce situation or custody issues, I've worked also at the courthouse at Antelope Valley Superior Courthouse in California. Okay, I worked with the family law judges directly and inside their workshop to help the public. And then I worked directly for the family law attorneys. During hearings, we would handle writing up certain documents for them, new custody modifications and schedules. And so what we do is we always schedule them at a public place. The exchange for the children needs to be done. Believe it or not, we choose the local sheriff's department and meet in the lobby. You don't even have to talk to the sheriff's department or the people, the deputies, or any of those individuals. You just meet in the lobby and you make the exchange with the children there, and that's it. You want to meet never alone, never a rural place, never have somebody else control and dictate where you meet, going to make a change on you. Oh, you're driving out, I'm going to call them, hey, let's meet at Starbucks instead. The change. I think there was a change, right, with this on this case. They controlled, the other side controlled, the grandma controlled the meeting spot, catch her off guard. It's going to be at a remote place. It's a place that even the cell phones do not work. There is you never, ever, 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 ever meet at a place where you don't have witnesses or cameras to fall back on. Yeah. You never meet in a remote place. Okay? It's very serious, and you don't wait for problems either. You agree from the start. This is how I write up the documents for a meeting place and spousal exchanges for the children. You meet at the sheriff's department in their lobby. They're used to seeing it. This is the way we write it up in Los Angeles, in California, is where I practice law. Though I've moved into a different state, I still work full-time with attorneys in California remotely. Okay? And we write up the exchange location, the sheriff's department, in their lobby. So you don't even have to, like I said, even talk to the deputies. And if only they would have met at a place like this, this never would have happened. The women never would have been abducted. They never would have been murdered. Hopefully not. I'm sure maybe the grandmother would have come up, maybe possibly with something else, because what the Lord showed me is she's the brains behind it all. And there's just so many problems with this. Also, I've graduated from 2 police academies, the community academies for Santa Monica Police Department and Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. And I could tell you through the training I've had, watching this scenario and reading the court documents, that the pastor's wife, her purse was found with the ammunition right in it.
Yeah, a magazine in her purse.
And the problem is that the gun was gone. And the most likely, this is what we're taught, you don't want your gun ever being used against you. And I don't know that because I haven't read it somewhere in the court documents. However, there is a likelihood that that's what occurred in this situation. They found her gun and took it from her. Yeah. And used it against her. Yeah. And that is the worst situation you can ever be in. You never want, of course, your gun to be used against you. And I think that's probably what happened.
Yeah, the little bit that's in the newspaper about the scene, I remember reading something about a broken car window, a broken hammer, her glasses were found nearby, lots of blood. It does not sound like a good scene. We'll not get into details because it's so really sketchy out there. As a victimologist, a forensic victimologist and criminologist, I do know that, and law enforcement always starts with the family, with the husband or the wife or the children, and go outward from there. In this case, it was the mother-in-law, as it were, the grandmother of the children, who wanted these children for her own, and in this case, the father of the children had a really strong alibi. He was in rehab, so under the watchful eye of others, and so he wasn't there. It's impressive how quickly law enforcement has wrapped this up. They did a really good job down there, it seems like, and now it's up to the prosecution to go after him.
Well, quite frankly, they did a great job because the 16-year-old daughter coughed up the information.
Yeah.
So kudos to the 16-year-old daughter who
morals,
came forward.
Ethics,
I'm not
courage.
quite sure of her intent. Is it she had difficulty with her parents and that was her ticket to get rid of them? We don't know the motive on that, but the truth is she spilled the beans. And if it wasn't for her testimony, and hopefully she won't recant, she's not going to go back on her testimony because she still, I'm sure, has to testify in court.
Yeah, and victimologically, and I really want to stress this, the advice that you gave is really, really important. Never accept changes. Some of that I hadn't really thought about before, but never accept a change to the plan. Stick to the plan. Be in a public place. Have witnesses.
Cameras.
Have
intentionally
cameras.
Park near cameras and have the exchange by cameras.
And if they call and say,
and you don't
like
need
you
problems.
Said, let's stop at Starbucks.
Do
say,
not,
no, I'm going to
Do not wait for problems to arise to make a safe meeting spot.
Stick to the plan or cancel.
From day one.
But don't accept changes.
That's how I write the custody schedule and the meeting exchange
really
place.
Good advice. Really good advice.
Another thing is that I've been taught from 911 operators, you never stop. Okay, we understand from the court records that the two of the individuals parked their vehicles so that they had no alternative but to stop. And then the other two people took control of them. Okay?
Herded them.
Herded them like they are. I think that they're cattle people, and they kind of they dehumanized these women and treated them like cattle, like they were herding them to stop them and herd them into this area so we can overtake them. And, it's very dehumanization, obviously. So, but the thing is that 911 operators have taught me, and through the training through law enforcement, you never stop. You never stop. Do not stop. Okay? She should have kept moving. She should have driven around. There's no gates to prevent you from making a wide turn. Whatever it is, how they were blocking, I could tell you, I could drive around it somehow. Or turn around, start backing up. Whatever it is, you don't stop. Okay? I know with my training that any 911 officer or a law enforcement officer listening to us right now would agree with me. You never stop, okay? You need to get away somehow and drive straight to the sheriff's department. Drive straight to the police department. Whatever it is, okay? When there's a problem, that's where you drive straight to. You don't drive to your house.
All right.
So anyway, with proper training, if anybody's going through a divorce, go rewrite your meeting spot, and you don't need problems to do it. And this all would have been prevented with proper information or wisdom or... Oh, and another thing, too, that bothered me hearing about this case is her friend was interviewed, and I listened to it. The mother of the children, her friend was interviewed, and I listened to it last night, and I don't remember the person's name, but she said that the woman told her, Veronica Butler told her friend who was interviewed last night that she was having threats. Now, when you get threats, guys, you go to your attorney and you tell your attorney, and your attorney should, with proper training, and should know better, to get your restraining order against that person for the threats, okay? We run into that quite a bit on family law cases, divorce matters, or even sometimes, guys, it happens after the divorce has occurred. People go into modifications later, okay? And another thing they teach us is that, let's say that you're divorced and you have 50-50 custody and you're getting along fine, and years later, they say that the men, it's well studied, that men, when they bring in another woman, they want their children back, okay? And they make up stories about the wife, the ex-wife, and throw her under the bus to get his children back, okay? And it's well studied through family law in California that this occurs. So be aware of it, ladies. If you're divorced, you want to watch out for that. They have a tendency to make up stories and try to get their children back. So those are the wisdom, if information I can give you guys to help you, that this hopefully never occurs, that we can prevent this from happening. Again, this is really, really sad. I mean, here's the pastor's wife, Jilian, with a gun. She thought she was prepared, didn't she?
Yeah.
But it was taken from her and used against her. So, do you have anything else to say, Dr. G?
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, we
Hopefully
thank you.
we can learn from it.
Yes. Well, we thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to talk to you on our next episode. God bless you.
God bless.